Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show. You'll notice that I have a little cat with me, and that is because somebody is being very needy right now, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling to put him down, but I will have to put you down soon, Smudge. If you've never been here before, you're on Varietal Literature's YouTube channel, isn't that right, Smudge? And tonight we're doing a pirate theme. I'm wearing a pirate-themed costume, but you wouldn't know it because I got a little kitty in the way. And we're going to play a game that's a riff on Alone Among the Stars, which is a game we've played on this channel before, except we're going to be pirates sailing around the sea and finding stuff on maps. If people are saying hello, are you falling asleep? You cannot fall asleep here. There you go. There you go. Go find a bed. There's so many. We've made nothing. Every surface here is your bed. I'm sure this is not the end of the problems he will pose. Anyways, this is a ride-along stream. If you came on board to this ship, I promise this won't be the whole stream. Also, if you're getting seasick, I promise this won't occupy as much of the screen as it is right now, the whole stream. But if you came on board during one of the fairy tale or folktale streams, this is not that. We do that Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 Eastern. Though you are welcome here, what we do here is we use prompts to write. I call it a write-along stream. It's for people who either enjoy contributing their stuff to my writing, and I'll try to write something cohesive in the next hour. Or you can write along with me and take those prompts in your own direction. And you can even do what Big Drew often does, although he's not obligated to, share it in the chat. And as long as it's not horrifying, I'll read it aloud. And if you're watching this later, like not live, feel free to put it in the comments. We're a small and forgiving group. Yeah. That's what we're doing. It's a ride-along stream. It's a long-winded way of saying, yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of rum. This is a ride-along stream. Which means, I need to explain what we're doing today. GS says, good evening, GS. Big Drew says, I'm just snacking on cheesy garlic bread and waiting to haul on deck for this voyage. Oof. Garlic bread doesn't keep well. So you're going to have to finish it before you get on the ship. Also, let me know if because I've added some background sounds here, let me know if they're dominating my voice or getting on your nerves, and I can turn them off. Just Fleece It Out said hello to Smudge. Smudge walked away, as that's cat for hello. Big Drew says, do we have plenty of lemons on deck to stave off the scurvy? Times are tough. And I think scurvy is just a myth. Is that topical? Okay. So let's talk about the lit game then. Which means I need to... Lit games. Lit games stands for literature games. It was a term that we came up with like almost 2 years ago now. April 1st, by the way, is the anniversary of the show, second year anniversary of the show, and also my birthday. But it's basically expressive games, lyric games, solo tabletop RPGs. There's like 20 different names for it. It's structures of prompts. It's, we put ourselves in a headspace. We try to write a certain genre. We use prompts to put a bit of a challenge to it, and we just write. It's for people that like writing. Big Drew says, small, unforgiving world. If you're writing be trash, you'll be walking the plank. Although, you know, our waters are pretty calm, so really that's just, you get to go swimming. And what we're doing tonight is one called Voyage. So let me show you what that looks like. Voyage is a take on the Alone Among the Stars. So just to remind yourself, Alone Among the Stars requires us to draw player cards and to roll d6s. And the reason we do that is not to like win anything or whatever. It just on charts gives us some words or some ideas that we have to incorporate into a journal entry. And the journal entries are the point of the game. We're going to be basically journaling together. I suspect we'll get through 1 or 2 journal entries. You guys can carry it on. You can say that you found your own boat, sail on, and tell me what else you find in the comments, which is something I have done on various Discords I'm on. So the game itself, you can get it on itch.io. You can probably get it elsewhere, but that's where I got it. And it is a part of the Solo But Alone 3, I believe, group of games, which is 150 games for $10, of which about 30% are barely games or not games, but of which I would say a good 40 or 50% are actually pretty excellent. I also wanted to mention that on that front, tabletop RPGs for, this isn't necessarily solo though, this is also on itch.io, tabletop RPGs for Transrates in Florida is running a bundle of 500 games for a minimum donation of $5, which obviously I bought. And I'm a little shocked because some of them are like full-blown games. They're like 300-page proper books. A lot of them I couldn't play on the stream here. The Solo But Alone we could, but a lot of them we couldn't. So the way this game works is just basically prompts for journal entries. However, this game, I want to do some justice to the designers here. This game was specifically designed that you play in a group and you draw on a map the stuff you find, like little symbols on a map, because you're supposed to be sort of making a map. I can't do that, because to do that, I would need a device to draw. And I don't have that. I do work in a house with an animator, but I'm not, there's no way I can go and set up on their Cintiq. So we're not going to do the drawing side. You're welcome to pull out pretty much any map of a generic fantasy whatever, and when we find stuff, sketch an image of a Kraken or something on it. Alright, that's enough explaining from me. Nobody ever really understands the games anyways. It's just about writing. So why would I waste more time writing it? Now here is one thing that is unique though, and on chat, attention on deck, chat, because this is about you. I have here a list of crewmate tropes, and anyone who wants to be a part of my ship, you do not have to submit yourself to this, by the way. You can still give prompts or anything. There's no restrictions. This is for fun. But anyone who wants to be on my ship, let me know in the chat, and I'll draw a card for you to tell you what part of the crew you are. So it's things like new recruit or someone wise or whatever. Like it's a prompt for a character. And once I give you your prompt, and we'll go into the writing or whatever, but once I give you your prompt, I want you to give me a brief description of your character. It doesn't have to be like you. And any other detail you want. And I'll try to work you into at least some of the journal entries, because you'll be on the ship. So, what that means is from you guys, just let me know if you're volunteering to I don't know, say like, I volunteer to be on your crew, and I'll draw a card, because I'm not going to impose it on anyone who doesn't want to be a part of that. And let me get these going. I don't think I actually shuffled these since last time, so give me a second. I'm going to shuffle them like an idiot. I know you're not supposed to, like, bend them, but that's the method I was taught. Okay, GS wants to be on a ship. Says they love a ship. Okay, GS. I'm drawing a card for you from a random part of the deck. And it is The one thing you can't be. I forgot to put this ahead of time. For the ease of writing, you can't be the captain. Because that's going to make this complicated. So I'm drawing another card. I am sorry. In your heart, you can be the captain. Drawing another card. You are the 3 of clubs. You are someone wise or someone salty or both. So just briefly, tell me a little bit about your character who is boarding a ship. You're someone wise or someone salty or both. And if anybody else wants to join the crew, let me know. I'll draw a card for you. It doesn't require anything further of you, by the way. Just as, but clearly I am the captain. I considered that, but I just think it would make this structurally so slow. By the way, that hermit crab one we did last week, which I was like, I really like the story I came up with, to be honest. But I felt like the stream itself, I got off track and whatever else. That is the most popular varietal show we've ever done. It is absurdly popular. And a bunch of people started following because of it, and I really appreciate that, because we are 1 subscriber away from 100 subscribers, which I don't know what I'm going to do about. You guys let me know if there's something you want me to do. Okay, so... the Great Ship Journey. I don't know what this would be called. And the crew, Captain Rory. That's me. GS is, let's say, second in command. Second in command. Somebody want to tell me the nautical terms for these things? Is it lieutenant? I don't know. Very wise, frequently salty. I want the cool side of the ship because I get salty when I get hot. GS, give me a name. If you want me to do GS, I'm just going to do that for now. Otherwise, give me a name for your character. I'm going to copy down what you said. And then, since nobody else seems to be interested in joining the journey, we'll draw cards as we need to. Although if at some point you guys change your mind, just let me know. I'll draw a card for you. It takes no time at all. Base without formatting. Very wise. Frequently salty. Okay, so... Whoops. There we go. Let's go for the first entry. First entry. I don't know. Let's just use today's date, March 16th. 1688. I don't know. Someone's gonna be like, that is inaccurate. Fergus Fauntleroy is GS's name. What a fantastic name. Good job. Second in command, the wise and salty Fergus Fauntleroy. Okay. Okay, so that means I need to roll a d6, but I'm actually using a slightly variant version of this game, which it allows me to do. And I'm going to roll 2 d6s. And that is going to tell us how the wind is on our sails right now. So I roll 2 dice and I add them together, and that gives me 11, which is a squall. The sea is angry. Name a resource or crewmate that's lost completely. Draw 6 cards face down. Okay. So we're going to have to draw a card for who the crewmate is. I'm just putting this prompt in here. We'll unitalicize it so we know it's just a prompt. Okay, so our first day out, we're not doing good. We've already lost a crewmate. I'm going to draw a card to see what type of crewmate we lost, and then I'm going to draw the 6 cards for the stuff we find. GS says, are we seeking a specific treasure? We could if we want. I mean, the structure of the game is usually... is ostensibly we're making a map, right? But since I'm not really doing it that way, that would work. GS, what do you think the treasure should be? A ruby skull of the ancient Mesopotamian king? What are we looking for? Okay, drawing a card. It's a Jack of Spades. Let's see who fell overboard. A fighter. An adventurer or a corsair. I'm going to go with a fighter. So, our swordsman. Our swordsman, if there's a recommendation for a swordsman's name, I'm all ears, but for now I'm going to call him Swordsman Jorge Van Tijo. That's not a name, I'm sure. Swordsman Jorge Van Tijo went overboard. And now I draw 6 cards, and that'll tell us what we find. But obviously we're gonna have to write about Jorge's loss first. I am interested in the idea of us seeking a specific treasure, GS, so if you have an idea in mind, or I can just impose my own. Okay, I have 6 cards on the table. We must embark on a search for a ruby skull. Okay. Let's do that then. Okay. "'Tis only a day since we set out upon the high ridges of the sea, and Neptune has already turned his ire towards us. Set out on the high ridges of the sea, seeking for the infamous ruby skull. Yet Neptune has already turned his ire towards us. The great swordsman and benefactor of the map we currently follow. Benefactor is the wrong term here. What does it mean in the other way? Like, benefactor means you benefited from it. What do you call the person you're benefiting from? Chat, be a writer for me. It's not like it's what I do. The benefactor of the map we currently follow. Jorge Van Tijo was practicing his measure and tempo. These are sword fighting terms as well as music terms. Was practicing his measure and tempo with his sword because he liked the challenge of the tilting wet deck. Bestower? Yeah, bestower is the right word. You're right. In case anybody wonders, like, how is this man a writer? I will say that it is hard to think of things on the stream because there is just a parade of visual information going on that you do not see. Second in command is called the first mate. Of course it is. What am I doing? Why am I even doing this? I'm an idiot. Stream over. How do I forget that? He liked the challenge of the tilting wet deck upon his for his footwork. Yet it tilted too greatly. and the tendrils of a foaming sea pulled him over. We never saw him again. We haven't seen him since. Okay, now, in this toil of storm, we're gonna find something. I guess maybe the water flips something up or whatever. And that thing is decided by this card, which is a 3 of diamonds. So let's see what we found. Okay, so diamonds means it's a wreck or ruin or something abandoned. I think that works well with a storm. And by the way, in chat, you can absolutely tell me what this should be, even if it's just broad strokes. But a wreck or a ruin, something abandoned. So let's put that over. And the 3 means it's something ancient and preserved. Well, that really helps. Okay. So that's one card down. Alas, I would give this C the female gender when she swallowed up Tilla, because they used to refer to that way. Okay. The tendrils of the foaming sea pulled him over. And seen him dead. I don't know if I've had an opportunity yet. The sea, she still drools and roars with hunger. The turmoil of the waters, though, sputtered up an old... I guess it's got to be a ship, right? Sputtered up an old ship that caught the strikes of lightning in near perfect reflection upon its crystal and golden hull. I wondered if it was madness so early upon the sea. And yet, as quick as it came up, it began to submerge. And Fergus, that's right. I called to Fergus, first mate Fergus. Called to first mate Fergus. Turn the sails! That must be worth enough to buy the entire French coast. First mate Fergus growled back, Don't follow! Gold in a storm? You know not what you may draw upon us. Yet, I grabbed the rigging myself, hands numb in the sharp, salted gales. And turned us to the ship. I grabbed the rigging myself, hands numb in sharp salted gills, and turned us toward the ship. Alas, Fergus proved the wisest. As the wind pushed us with such fierce what's another way to say this? Everything I've said, I've already said. It's a boring paragraph. As the wind pushed us, I guess with just such ferocity would work. Such ferocity that I found the tiller? The rudder. The rudder did little to move us and the sails began to tear and into shreds. The tail of the golden and crystal ship was sinking out of sight. And mad with the chance of glory, or drunk on the hope for glory? Drunk on a hope for glory, I rammed the ancient old ship. There was a hollering on the wind, and the storm abruptly stopped. We coast now with torn sails on windless waters. Lost and without. Lost and pulling helplessly. Lost and coasting over a glass sea. Just as you can use the word vessel too. Okay. Let's do our second journal entry. I like that one. Second journal entry. Let's see. I said the conditions had calmed down, but let's see if that holds. Okay, so it's 8. GS, how do you think Fergus would feel about his captain ignoring him, wrecking their sails, and ramming some ancient old boat? What would he be saying to him? Because I think that would go into the journal entry. Okay, so that's gale force. So it's we've gone down a level. Strong gusts, choppy seas. Trouble is brewing. Name a resource or crewmate who gets injured or depleted. Okay. Oh yeah, good point. Just says drifting. Drifting is the more common word for that kind of thing. Okay. Well, we have 5 cards out already, so I'm going to use that. And then, sure. Name a resource or crewmate who gets injured. So we need a crewmate to get injured, which means I'm going to draw a card, see what crewmate gets injured. Does the 8 of Hearts, and the 8 of Hearts is... a quartermaster, an organizer, or a bosun. GS says, "Arr, Captain, I stand by my words. 'Tis a fool's errand." Okay, so the bosun gets hurt. For those who don't know, the bosun is like the one up who sort of watches from the high point on the sails. To this day, yeah, the window washer seats. You see people going down the side of the building. This little window washer seat is called a bosun's chair for that reason. Okay, so the bosun is injured. If anyone has a name for the bosun or any traits they want associated, let me know. I'll work it in. Okay, last night, for almost the entire day, we sat still under the hot sun. Timothy Bojack. Man, GS. Just need to keep you around for names. Do you understand how much time writers waste on names? Like, that's why sometimes you get a name, you're like, this feels too elaborate. It is. It's because we spent like 4.5 months working on those names. And they're never worth it. Like, sometimes we put little, like, jokes or things in them, or, like, references to Greek something, and it's never worth it. Nobody ever gets it. It adds nothing. Bosun Timothy Bojack. For almost the entire day, we sat still under the hot sun. No one in the crew dared call me out for my foolishness. No one, of course, but my first mate, Fergus. who was sure to remind me upon each pass down the steps from the poop deck. That this terrible state was both me fault and a situation and a doing he warned me against. By the way, the poop deck has nothing to do with poop. Never did. Poop deck is the elevated deck. It got its name actually from the French word, which I'm forgetting at the moment, for that deck. Which kind of sucks if you ever want to do any, like, nautical stuff, which I did try to write a couple of years ago. And it was tough because, you know no one's hearing that the way it was supposed to. The heat began to bite my boys. Bringing out the aggravation of Fergus. At one point, I thought he may toss me overboard in a mutiny, but instead he went and found what little shade the tattered sails provided. None was hit harder than the piercing sun. But our bosun Timothy Bojack he was set up upon his rigging and the high sun, trying to stitch our sails back into a proper sail, into a proper whole sail. He passed out and fell the distance to the deck, breaking some teeth. Fergus was sure to remind me that was upon my head. But laid off when I suggested he replace the lad as the bosun. Oh, good line, GS. The crew was parched and getting quick to spat. Nonetheless, the crew was parched and getting quick to spat. I called us all up to get the sails back in order. Up high on the bosun chair, though, I saw, and now we go to our discovery. It is a 9 of clubs, so let's see what we got. What does he see? Clubs is an island, mysterious and alone. Perfect. This game is working out. And it being a 9 is something unified or merged. An overgrowth, a construction, an invasion. I'll be honest, I don't know what that means. I'm open to interpretation, but as much as I do well with the abstract, I don't know what that means. It's an island, something unified and merged. I guess I have a bit of an idea. I saw an island. Odd in shape it was. It stretched wide and narrow, like a sandbar. Well, that's an interesting take. GS says merged with the ocean. Was the heat causing a mirage, an illusion? That's a good question. It was stretched wide and narrow like a sandbar. It seemed to me in the endless... I guess I forgot to establish something. With a sight to some sort of hope, the boys stitched the sails in halftime, and soon as we had done it, the winds picked up again. Though not so strong, they were favorable and pushed us quick towards the island. It was a strange thing. The heat and the curling waters made it the whole thing bob in and out of the horizon. I felt I never got a clearer look at it. The long and strange island, crowned with a mane of green coconut trees and a bristle of small mountains. 'Twas Fergus who pointed me to... What was his name? Guy who fell overboard? Tiho. Oh, I went too far. Pointed me to Tiho's... Just says hills. I was thinking more like volcanoes. But, sure. 'Twas Varkus who pointed me to Tiho's map. A strange old yellowed thing with odd coasts and unknown archipelagos. As if he would know that word. And noted that the island before us looked a mighty bit like the place we sought. Just as I like volcanoes. Yeah, let's do small dead volcanoes. Well, I guess he wouldn't know. Small volcanoes. Looked a mighty bit like the place we sought. That brought blood back to the arms of the tired crew. Better than the best royal vessel. My boys trimmed the sails and tightened the rigging in an excited clockwork to bring us ashore. A long, strange island. Where are we at for time? Okay. I think I know how I can wrap this up. The last chance to let me know if there's anything you guys want to add. As we pushed in closer, prepping the boarding boats, we ran high-keeled on some sort of reef, or so we thought. Indeed, when I looked down, it was no reef, but a terrible claw. That clutched our hull in place. The island coast then began to move towards us Coast is the wrong word. The island shore. Towards us and curl about us. First mate Fergus cried out, "This be no island, but rather a terrible sea beast." Sea serpent? A cursed disguise as a cursed land. That doesn't make sense. As an alluring land for us, for the lost. Holly's House says, "Sorry, I was having an epic sleep." GS says, Fergus shouted, "It's a cursed land." Well, we were thinking the same there, weren't we? The first mate Fergus cried out, "This be no island, but rather a terrible sea serpent, a cursed disguise as an alluring land for the lost." And the terrible island beast rose high around us, trapping us in place. But then, as I saw its 6 horrid yellow cat eyes over a long snout like a crocodile, I cried, "We are doomed!" A mirage for greedy eyes, says GS. I like that. A mirage for greedy eyes. Sorry, just fixing something here. I cried, "We are doomed!" And as we all cowered and awaited to be eaten, a familiar voice called out. It said, "Hi, my old crewmates. You have done well to bring me home to my long-lost pet. We looked up in shock and saw it was Jorge. But he wore a royal cloak. Of golden silk kelp. And stood upon the head of the large sea serpent. Jorge! I cried. We thought you surely dead. Though even still, we searched the waters to our own peril when you were tossed out in the storm. Aye, Jorge responded, then patted the head of the terrible beast he stood high upon. My girl here told me so. A valiant act for a crew of lovable scoundrels. Yet it is my time to depart, for I am a deathless king of the deep sea. You have brought me home after so many could not. However, you destroyed my people's most precious ship. Built by the gods themselves. And for this, they would see your heads on pikes. However, since you saved my life, my reward will not be the ruby skull, but rather your lives. Then the great beast sunk beneath the sea, though in the last moment Fergus ran to the side and said, "Only the captain rammed you. Maybe just eat him and leave for us the ruby skull." But the beast was gone. And so we sailed on. Alright. I guess it's time to read that back. Probably should change the name. The greatest treasure. And let me change that last line. We'll go full cornball here. Okay. Man, I was trying to be short on this one too, and I went long. Thank you to my first mate, GS, or Fergus. If you are jumping ahead to this section, that means that you just want to hear the finished story, and we called this story The Greatest Treasure. It takes place over 2 journal entries and involves the Captain Rory, which is the perspective of the journal, and his first mate, Fergus Fauntleroy, who is a very wise man, though frequently salty, and likes the cool side of the ship, because they get particularly salty when they get hot. And of course, in the beginning here are the prompts, which I won't read aloud, but again, these are written off prompts from the game Voyage. First entry, March 16th, 1688. 'Tis only a day since we set out upon the high ridges of the sea, seeking for the infamous ruby skull, yet Neptune has already turned his ire towards us. The great swordsman and bestower of the map we currently follow, Jorge Van Tijo, was practicing his measure and tempo with his sword because he liked the challenge of the tilting wet deck for his footwork in the terrible storm that beset us. Yet the ship tilted too greatly, and the tendrils of a foaming sea pulled him over. We haven't seen him since. The sea, she still drools and roars with hunger. The turmoil of the waters, though, sputtered up an old ship that caught the strikes of lightning in near-perfect reflection upon its crystal and golden hull. I wonder if it was madness so early upon the sea, and yet as quick as it came up, it began to submerge. I called to my first mate, Fergus, "Turn the sails! That must be worth it enough to buy the entire French coast." First mate Fergus growled back, "Don't follow gold in storms. You know not what you may draw upon us." Yet I grabbed the rigging myself, hands numb in sharp, salted gales, and turned us toward the ship. Alas, Fergus proved the wisest, as the wind pushed us with such ferocity that I found the rudder did little to move us, and the sails began to tear into shreds. The tail of the golden and crystal ship was sinking out of sight and drunk on a hope for glory. I rammed the ancient old ship. There was hollering on the wind, and the storm abruptly stopped. We coast now with torn sails on windless waters, lost and drifting over a glass sea. Second journal entry. For almost the entire day, we sat still under the hot sun. No one in the crew dare called me out for my foolishness. No one, of course, but my first mate Fergus, who was sure to remind me upon each pass down the steps from the poop deck that this terrible state was both my fault and a doing he warned me against. The heat began to bite my boys, bringing out the aggravation of Fergus. At one point I thought he may toss me overboard in a mutiny, but instead he went and found what little shade the tattered sails provided. None was hit harder with the piercing sun but our boatswain, Timothy Bojack. He was set up upon his rigging in the high sun, trying to stitch our sails back into a proper wholesail. He passed out and fell the distance to the deck, breaking some teeth. Fergus was sure to remind me that his injuries were upon my head, but Fergus laid off when I suggested he replace the lad as the boatswain up there in the sun. Nonetheless, the crew was parched and getting quick to spat. I called us all up to get the sails back in order. Up high on the boatswain chair, though, I saw an island. Odd in shape it was. It stretched wide and narrow like a sandbar, with a sight to some sort of hope. The boys stitched the sails in half-time, and soon as we had done it, the winds picked up again. Though not so strong, they were favorable and pushed us quick towards this strange island. It was indeed a strange thing. The heat and the curling waters made the whole thing bob in and out of the horizon. I felt I never got a clear look at the long, strange island, crowned with a mane of green coconut trees and a bristle of small volcanoes. 'Twas Fergus who pointed to me to Tijo's map, a strange old yellowed thing with odd coasts and unknown archipelagos. and noted that the island before us looked a mighty bit like the place we sought. That brought blood back to the arms of the tired crew. Better than the best royal vessel, my boys trimmed the sails and tightened the rigging in an excited clockwork to bring us ashore to the long, strange island. And as we pushed in closer, prepping the boarding boats, we ran high-keeled on some sort of reef, or so we thought. Indeed, when I looked down, it was no reef, but a terrible row of claws that clutched our hull in place. The island shore then began to move towards us and curl about us. First Mate Fergus cried out, "This be no island, but rather a terrible sea serpent, a cursed disguise as an alluring land for the lost, a mirage for greedy eyes." Then the terrible island beast rose high around us, trapping us in place. But then, as I saw, it had 6 horrid yellow cat eyes over us long snout like a crocodile that stretched twice the length of the largest galleon, I cried, "We are doomed!" And as we all cowered and awaited to be eaten, a familiar voice called out. It said, "Aye, my old crewmates, you've done well to bring me home to my long-lost pet." And we looked up in shock and saw it was Jorge. But he wore a royal cloak of golden silk in the shape of kelp, and stood upon the head of the large sea serpent. "Jorge," I cried, "we thought you surely dead, though even still we searched the waters to our own peril when you were tossed out in the storm." "Aye," Jorge responded, and then patted the head of the terrible beast he stood high upon. "My girl here told me so. A valiant act for a crew of lovable scoundrels. And yet it is time to depart, for I am a deathless king of the deep sea. You've brought me home after so many could not. However, you destroyed my people's most precious ship, built by the gods themselves, and for this they would see our heads on pikes. Since you saved my life, though, my reward will not be the ruby skull, nor will I punish you by putting your heads on pikes, but rather I will leave you your lives, the greatest treasure of all." And then the great beast sank beneath the sea, though in the last moment Fergus ran to the side and said, "Only the captain rammed you. Maybe you just eat him and leave us the ruby skull." But the beast was gone, and so we had no choice but to sail on. Big Drew says I don't get a readout tonight. No, I read you out after. It also comes down to time. If I feel like, because I got to finish the story, right? So we'll read Big Drew's story. It be day 47 of me journey. Me parrot, Blarney, winged off into the sunset last night. Guess he was tired of me foul stench and not sharing me rum, what I wouldn't have given for a sponge bath. But I digress. Upon the dawn a new bit of land came into view, nary a mention upon me charts. So I gave it me name, Hamfordshire. It be an island nearly 3 days float due south of the Italy's boot. It be a bright day out, warm and nary a cloud in the sky. Our heading has been set for be new island. Must find a people to conquer and a village to plunder, for provisions are waning. And me. Bloodlust is on the rise. Down goes the inked quill and up goes the sails, yo-ho. Dawn upon day 52. Myself and what remains of me crew have to return to our ship in our last shore boat. I, Bartholomew Lindy, take command of the good ship Valiant as first mate under Captain Hamford. It is my duty to return these men home. These seas were vicious when we took our shore leave, but nothing compared to the savages that await us beaching. Merciless, animalistic beatings. The minds of these men may never know peace again. I will not soon forget the cries of men being roasted alive, nor the ravenous way those damned savages consumed them in memory of our fallen captain. I removed his name from that god-forsaken barbaric place, and instead anchor a buoy of warning that all who draw near are at risk of imminent peril. Valiant remains unscathed, so we're off. Day 57, and I fear mutiny is afoot. These men know no civility. They pine for Hamford's pirating way, and I think there might have been another part to that, but I don't have it, unfortunately. Day 58. Valiant has been proclaimed. I be Captain Andrus Argus. That lecherous fiend... Oh, I see. I get what happened there. A mutiny did happen. That lecherous fiend Lindy has been sent to the briny deep. There be squall afoot, so me men will enjoy the night sky, and a last look to the heavens before battening down the hatches and preparing for a hard day's sail, should we survive. We'll be on Tortuga and the spoils of a pirate's cove. Praise be for our plunder. Mayhaps a few flagons of bitter brew, and a few more of rum, and a night or two in the company of a wench. After all, these men have been through a lot late. Day 62. Dawn called us back to sea. Melvin Dowdy challenged me for my command over Valiant, but I, the son of a swordsmith, am not to be trifled with. When my blade was shed her scabbard, she be swift and lethal. Dowdy will never leave Tortuga, but my replenished crew, me vessel and I, were off to Tahiti. It is time to chase the sun across the sky. Pirate races are afoot in 6 days' time, and Valiant be the fastest vessel on the sea. After all, the prize of a chest of gold and jewels, a year's provisions, and no less than 50 maps of lands to pillage. Set your eyes on the horizon. Hoist the colors high, men. Yo-ho! There we go. Well, we went a little long, so I'm not going to dwell on this too much. Just to remind you that if you like the stream, remember to like the stream. And if you're interested in subscribing, we are 1 subscriber away from 100 subscribers, which is a number I actually never really thought I'd reach. And I really thank everybody who's given me a shot, because obviously this is niche and weird, both the Tuesday night and this one. But, you know, I have fun, so I hope you guys have fun. Thank you so much, Big Drew, for joining in to our ride-along stories. Thank you, GS, for being my first mate. Thank you, Holly's House, for joining us, even though you had an epic sleep. And anybody who's watching on the video on demand, yo-ho! And welcome aboard. You don't have to go home, but get off my ship.